Well, President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud of Somalia is attending the U.S.-Africa Summit. He stopped by VOA studios and talked to us about the significance of the conference for his country, as well as the continent of Africa.
It's investing the future, that is improving the quality of life in the African continent, number one. And the second is improving the cooperative relationship between the United States and Africa. So it's a continental theme and continental dialogue with the United States. It's not issues for a specific country, but issues for the continent as well, and Somalia is part of the continent.
What do you think actually is one thing or a few things that have really held the continent back, such that we really need to think critically about how to improve the future with this kind of partnership?
There are a couple of issues that I can say that it is because it's major reasons that the continent has been delayed in the development aspect. One is lack of democratic institutions in place, and that's maybe one fundamental issue. And the other one is, as the theme indicates now, investing the future, investing the youth, preparing the generations to come to lead the continent in the right direction. And I think now in 21st century, this is the time that all these issues are become very clear, and Africa is addressing those issues in support with its international partners like the United States. I'm very much hopeful that this century is the century for Africa, and that has been proven as Africa now is engaging the rest of the world. Recently we have the European and African Summit, we have the Arab and the African Summit. Right now we have America and African Summit. Future, by the end of August, we will be having China and Africa, India and Africa. So now Africa is the centerpiece of the world development and the future of the world in terms of security, in terms of food security, and in terms of resources. So this is a very important time for the continent of Africa, and the leadership of today is very much focused on those directions.
Mr. President, talking about the leadership being focused on those issues, most African citizens are very skeptical about the commitment of African leaders in implementing some of the great ideas that have been put out there. How can the leadership today reassure the Africans that actually they have that commitment, that sense of patriotism of wanting to help the continent take the leap and develop and become like the rest of the world?
It is the history of the continent that shows us why in the past that the situation or the condition was what we have described it now. Africa has got its political independence a long time ago, but it's lacking economic and development independence. Right now, Africa is experiencing this new phenomena of economic independence, and there is no one country that's isolated or have its own agenda alone, but Africa now is in a position to have a collective bargaining with the developing world, a collective bargaining on many issues that Africa was addressing individually before. Now addressing through the African Union, through the African Development Bank, and many other forums that exist today. The leadership in the past lacked that level of independence and autonomy. That today, the current leaders of Africa have an opportunity. They have the potentiality of economic freedom. They have the potentiality of the sharing the modern technology that Africa was lacking before now. Now, still we are lacking behind, but we are in a very, today, if you go to the African capitals, I'd say there is something that was not existing 10 years ago or 5 years ago even. Every year, Africa is moving forward. Now, investing the future, investing the youth. If you go to the history of the African countries' budget in the past 70s, 80s, you see how much was allocated for the human capital development. And today, not all of Africa, but in many African countries, you can see this trend is changed now, and a lot of a very major portion of the budget is allocated for the human capital development. This is an indicator that Africa is not depending on the raw material only. But now Africa is building a knowledge-based society for the future.
Yes, and Africans have a lot of confidence in their future, in their youth, in their commitment to developing the continent, but actually they have no confidence in their leaders. They don't trust most of their leaders. They actually believe most of their leaders are like mercenaries, focused on helping themselves and their friends and their families. How can that change?
Well, one is this is a perception that was developed a long time, and it will come to end. It will take some time until we change that mindset of our people, of course, in the continent. But today, the world arena does not breed those type of practices anymore. No one can escape today. The world is a world of transparency. There are instruments and institutions that works on those issues. Even in the African continent today, it's not easy to grab the wealth of one country and put it into another country, or the family takes. There is a very clear discussion going on in Africa today to separate between the state business and the family business. It's very clear. And Africa is building institutions that safeguards its own interests. Today, the world is a different place.